morning, I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Ellison Barber in for Savannah Sellers. Right now on Morning News Now, on the stand, Kyle Rittenhouse, the man accused of killing two men during protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin. An emotional and explosive day in court as the teen testified in his own defense, saying he fired his assault rifle because he felt his life was in danger.
There were three people right there.
I shoot him.
And how many times did you shoot?
I believe 4.
And calls for a mistrial as tempers flared. The question prosecutors asked Rittenhouse that had the judge scolding them and sending the jury out of the courtroom. We'll break down all of the developments from this pivotal day in the trial. Major setback as President Biden gets ready to sign his infrastructure plan into law. A serious warning sign for the economy. Inflation hits a 30-year high. The higher prices hitting hard for millions of Americans. What this means for your family and how the White House is hoping to ease the pain. Hidden fees, another reason to watch your wallet. The rising cost of a hotel room. But the price you see in your booking might not be what you end up paying. Why a new lawsuit says some major hotel chains are deceiving customers by not showing the real price tag. And honoring our heroes. Today is Veterans Day, and as we pay tribute to all of those who have served, we're talking to some of our own colleagues who have been on the front lines. Hear their incredible stories later this hour. All right, and we begin with that dramatic day of testimony in the Kyle Rittenhouse murder trial. The teenager who is accused of shooting 3 people amid civil unrest in Wisconsin took the stand yesterday for hours of cross-examination.
Now Rittenhouse's lawyers are calling for a mistrial with no possibility of a retrial after the judge lashed out twice at the prosecution over judicial procedure. We're covering it from all angles with NBC News correspondent Jay Gray on the ground there in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos. Jay, let's start with you. This was the public's first chance to hear Rittenhouse explain in his own words what happened during that protest in Kenosha last year. What did he have to say?
Joe, he was pretty consistent throughout his testimony, whether it was from his own defense team or that cross-examination you talk about. Let's give a listen right now to how prosecutors pressed him on that night.
I didn't intend to kill them. I intended to stop the people who were attacking me.
By killing them?
I did what I had to do to stop the person who was attacking me.
By killing them?
2 of them passed away, but I stopped the threat from attacking me.
Yeah, Rittenhouse saying that he was ambushed, that he was forced to fire in self-defense, and continued to echo that throughout his testimony.
And Danny, obviously, Kyle Rittenhouse did not have to take the stand. He chose to take the stand. If he was your client, what would you have advised him to do? And how do you think the jury received his decision to actually take the stand in that testimony he gave?
Defense attorneys are very risk averse, and generally speaking, you don't want to call your client to the stand if you can get that evidence in any other way. The burden is always with the prosecution. You can rest by just pointing to the prosecution and saying they didn't prove their case. That being said, this was a gambit that so far has worked for the defense. Of course, the final test is the verdict. This is a very rare instance where you see a defendant testifying. The defense team obviously thought, given all the risks, it was worth it to try and put him on the stand.
So, Jay, the judge and prosecution had a number of angry exchanges. First, let's take a listen to this.
Don't get brazen with me. You knew very well. You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled without asking outside the presence of the jury to do so. So don't give me that.
So, Jay, help us understand, what was the judge upset about and how might that affect the rest of the trial?
Yeah, Joe, very frustrated with the idea that prosecutors were trying to introduce some evidence that he had previous to this trial said could not be admitted. He said that they were working around that they should have talked to him outside the presence of the jury there. He dismissed the jury twice, but only sent them back to the library, not back to chambers. So there's some speculation that as loud as he was at admonishing the prosecution here, it may have been overheard by the jury, which obviously could have an impact on how this goes.
So, Danny, in part because of that moment, the defense is now requesting a mistrial. Walk us through that process. How will the judge make the decision whether or not to side with the defense? And what, in general, could that mean for any future charges?
Two major complaints that the prosecution attempted to introduce evidence that was already precluded by the judge. And part two, separately, that they may have the prosecution attempted to refer to the defendant's post-arrest silence, which is a huge no-no, and a no-no that the prosecutor surely knew about and knew he was treading upon hallowed ground. So, and you heard the judge say that you are really close to the constitutional line. You may have gone over it. That's why it's possible. This motion is still under advisement. It is possible the judge, after a day or two of reflection and talking to his law clerks or even doing some research, he may come back possibly and dismiss this case with prejudice, which means the prosecution can't bring it again. Jeopardy attaches. That really only happens when there's prosecutorial misconduct of some kind. But still, the odds are against it. Judges hate to take a case away from the jury. And so statistically, likely it'll go forward, but a huge issue for appeal if Rittenhouse is convicted.
All right, Jay Gray, Danny Ceballos, thank you both for your insights. We appreciate it.
Now to new concerns about inflation this morning. You've probably noticed everything from groceries to clothes are costing a little more. But exactly how much more? The government reported yesterday that the Consumer Price Index, that's the price of a broad range of everyday goods, rose a whopping 6.2% in October, reaching its highest level in more than 30 years. And one particular area driving that surge is the cost of gas. That jumped by more than 12% over the month. That is pushing gas prices higher at the pumps, particularly in Connecticut, where it is nearing an all-time high not seen in more than a decade. MSNBC anchor Lindsay Reiser joins us now from Fairfield, Connecticut, with more on this. Lindsay, walk us through the situation at the gas pumps over there. When we say high prices, how high are we talking here?
Allison, unfortunately, we're talking really high. Good morning to you. When we're talking about fuel and energy, we're talking about a couple of things in the CPI report, right? So you have the energy that it costs to power and heat your home. That's also up. And then we're talking about gas prices, which is what we're focusing on today for the average American. So right now, these gas prices are up about 50% year to year. We're seeing the highest levels at the pump that we've seen since September of 2014. According to AAA, about the average price of a gallon of gas nationwide is about $3.42 a gallon. Here in Connecticut, it's much higher, $3.54 a gallon. This gas station is even higher. And that's about a quarter more than what people were paying just last month, and nearly $1.50 more than what people were paying this time last year. And Allison, we keep inching closer and closer to that all-time high here in this state in 2008, and that was $4.39. And one industry expert that we talked to says we are not even inching at this point. We are soaring, Ellison.
Wow, $4.39, old high. How did we get to where we are right now? Why is it that gas prices in particular are being impacted so much?
Yeah, so I talked to Chris Hurd. He is with the Connecticut Energy Marketers Association. He says, you got to take us back to econ in high school, right? It's a simple case of supply and demand. In the pandemic, everything shut down. So did production. Now all that demand has ramped up and production hasn't been able to keep up. Let's listen to what Chris told me.
Suppliers of oil did not realize that the comeback from COVID would be so quick. And what's happened is the supply chains have had a difficulty catching up to that increased demand. That is being compounded by President Biden's energy policy, which has reverted the United States from being a net exporter of fuel to being an importer again. So we are once again at the beck and call of OPEC and Russia to increase production, which they've refused to do. So until that balances itself out, we're probably going to see higher prices in the short and medium term.
Ellison, I'd hate to be the bearer of more bad news, but it doesn't sound like it's going to ease up anytime soon. And we can talk about when we might experience some relief. But I can tell you with the holidays coming up, AAA is expecting basically levels very close to pre-pandemic levels of 2019, the largest jump in travelers that we're going to see since 2005. 90% of people, Ellison, say they're going to travel by car this Thanksgiving holiday.
Yeah, I was going to say, you look at just travel where we are right now. Obviously, a lot of people are hoping that they will see those prices drop. You said that it doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. But is there any indication of when we might start to see even a little bit of relief, or is this just on the up with no end in sight?
Look, here's the tough part. The experts that I'm talking to across all these sectors here impacted by this CPI report, so we're talking gas, we're talking food, they're not even expecting it to peak yet. They say it's going to keep inching closer, and we're not going to see any relief probably until the first, maybe even the second quarter of next year. Ellison.
Great. Lindsay Reiser, thanks for that.
Those inflation numbers come as the president hits the road touting the recently passed $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill. NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba joins us now. So, Monica, what is the president saying right now about the high inflation rate?
Well, this did put the White House on defensive a bit, Joe, because yesterday when the president scheduled this event, he thought he was going to be touting this legislative victory on the bipartisan infrastructure plan. But of course, those inflation numbers put everything into a bit of a different context. And he did want to send a message to consumers that he understands. He offered a sympathetic tone. He said, essentially, I feel your pain. And then he made an argument for why he thinks the rest of his economic agenda might be the answer to some of these woes. Take a listen.
Many people remain unsettled about the economy, and we all know why. They see higher prices. They go to the store online, or they can't, or they go to the store or go online, and they can't find what they always want and when they want it. And we're tracking these issues and trying to figure out how to tackle them head on. My administration, with the help of the folks on my left over here, has a plan to finish the job at getting us back to normal from the pandemic and having a stronger economy than we ever had before.
Of course, these high inflation numbers do undercut one of the president's central tenets and messages that the economy is on the road to recovery and that his plan is working. So the White House now is working overtime to, again, try to say that if they can enact the Build Back Better plan that could create millions of jobs, that would help. But there are a lot of concerns, and it's not just from Republican critics, but from some Democrats as well, who are seeing this and are a little worried about what's to come, Joe.
I mean, Monica, at the Port of Baltimore yesterday, the president was talking about the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which was recently passed. Does the White House think that bill could help fight inflation?
That's a part of it. And of course, there's a main question here about the implementation of that $1.2 trillion plan. That shovels will be going into the ground soon. The president, of course, has already announced a signing ceremony with Republicans and Democrats here at the White House on Monday. And then he said Americans should start to feel the effects of that 1 to 2 months from now. So it's still going to take a little bit of time, but that is this administration's position. The issue, however, is that we already have Democratic Senator and that key, sometimes Senate holdout, Joe Manchin, expressing concern. He's been saying this for months, that inflation is a big problem and a reason for why some of these packages shouldn't be so large and so much shouldn't be spent. And now, after that came out yesterday, he issued another statement. So that's what's going to create a big uphill battle for the other piece of this. So the president, while taking a bit of a victory lap on infrastructure and why they do feel that will help the economy, now is put on his heels a little bit about whether this other giant plan, the $1.75 trillion so-called human infrastructure plan, whether the timing of that is right, whether they're going to have to wait. We know that the House and Senate are out of session. They'll be back next week to start to debate that, to see where that goes to next, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the politics of this, you've got high inflation rates. The president's facing sagging approval ratings. Democrats lost the governor's race in Virginia. Does the White House think infrastructure bill's enough to turn things around? What else do they think needs to be done?
They are really going to point to what they've been talking about for the last 10 months, which a big part of this is also the pandemic, and reminding everybody that in the midst of this health crisis, vaccinations need to continue and that people need to remain vigilant. Now that kids 5 to 11 are approved, parents should try to get them to get their shots. Anyone who's eligible for a booster. The president and the White House are going to argue that, of course, these twin crises from the economic perspective and from COVID-19 are something that need to be tackled together. So they're going to continue to argue that while saying things like child care, elder care, everything that's in the so-called human infrastructure bill and the Build Back Better plan, they believe can really help with that. The question is, again, this implementation. Things can really continue to progress on Capitol Hill, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be signed into law anytime soon. So Americans wondering when it's really going to benefit them, that's still a bit of an open question and one the White House still has to convey and make their argument on. Joe.
All right, Monica Alba, thank you.
With major progress being made on vaccines and COVID-19 treatments, many are asking new questions about kids getting vaccinated and continued mask use in schools. The White House now says about 900,000 kids 5 to 11 years old have received their first dose of the Pfizer vaccine, a little over a week after regulators authorized the shot. NBC's Lester Holt asked CDC Director Rochelle Walensky what this vaccine rollout for younger kids means for masks in school.
And I would say masks are for now, but they are not forever. I would say as our children are starting to get vaccinated just a week into this program, to continue to scale up our vaccinations for these children and to not yet get complacent with our mitigation and prevention strategies that are keeping our children in school.
Let's bring in Dr. Maddie Thatchwayo-Davis. She is the Director of Health for the City of St. Louis. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let's start with kind of the big question as it relates to schools right now. What do or should COVID mitigation measures look like in schools right now? And is there, from where you're sitting, sort of a magic number, a certain percent of a school student body being fully vaccinated, where you would feel comfortable saying masks are no longer necessary inside the classroom?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think this idea of a magic number is one that we keep coming to, but is just not the way that this works. Unfortunately, there's so many other factors that have to come into play. The case positivity rate of the city, county, or region you're dealing with, how vaccinations are going, but particularly what the trend is like and the time of year has to be taken into account. With our children, these are our most vulnerable. I'm a mom. My child turns 5 in 2 weeks, and getting her vaccinated is going to be the single most important thing for me as a parent. It's been absolutely terrifying not to have every available strategy for our young kids. Having said that, keeping kids in school safely must be the priority. And with that, I do not think that we should be quick to remove masking. Yes, getting children vaccinated as much as possible is key. And a combination of that vaccination rate, where the cases, hospitalizations, and death rates are, and the case positivity rate within the city is all going to be key. So for now, for me, masks have to stay.
Some experts have warned of a winter surge, possibly starting around Thanksgiving. Some say that it has actually already begun. The director of the University of Washington's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation says, based on their current projections, and I'm quoting here, we see increasing evidence in the northern hemisphere that the expected winter surge has started to unfold. What are you seeing in St. Louis right now, and what do you expect to see as we really head into the winter?
I've been really fortunate in St. Louis, within the city, which is where I am the director of health, that our case positivity rate has been really good, hovering around 5.9%, but we're already seeing little increases, but you cannot say anything meaningful from a day-to-day. These trends take time. So what I think has been more meaningful is looking at the overall trends nationally, but also abroad, where we have consistently been able to see that we lag behind some of the surges that we see, for example, in Europe, where that data already shows that surges are in place. And there's really nothing surprising about this, right? There's so much that would have given us this this projection. Number one, winter, and with it, us not being able to be in the well-ventilated areas, the best of which is being outside as much as possible. And we have always seen, since the beginning of the pandemic, surges that come around major holidays. And we're coming to 2 of the most major holidays here in Thanksgiving and Christmas. And so, yes, I do think that anticipating a surge, and more importantly, not worrying about, if it's for sure coming, but being prepared for whatever may come. And with that, my prior message stands in place. For me, having all the mitigation strategies in place that we know have helped us, we know have kept us here in the city, at least, with that case positivity rate in place.
One protective route people are trying to take is at-home COVID tests. A lot of people planning to travel this holiday season, they are scooping those up as fast as they can. But one company has expanded a recall of its test, including roughly 2 million test kits that were shipped to the U.S. just last month. This is called Illume, is the company. They say that the tests have been reporting a higher rate of false positives. What should people know about at-home tests? Would you say that they are reliable, or do you think people should take other measures?
There's no sweeping answer to that. There are so many different types of at-home tests out there. And what I would say to people is, before buying one, you need to look at what type of test it is. Has it been validated through the appropriate channels? Because the variability in accuracy of these tests is unfortunately very wide. And so while you believe you're going into the store and picking up a test, that says nothing about the accuracy of the test and its reliability to be able to safely tell you that with a high degree of certainty, you do not have COVID. Or you do. And that's unfortunate, because one of the things that's been disappointing to me at this time is that by this stage, we really should be focused on getting those types of tests in play, especially for all the reasons I've spoken about today. We have these holidays coming up, travel, and of course, our kids in school. We should have the capacity to have rapid, well-validated tests in hand that allow us to also add to these mitigation strategies, right? The ability to test ahead of time and to have a high degree of certainty that the answer you get is in fact reliable is something that the U.S. should have in play at this time. And so it's my hope that the powers that be will really focus on this, because it makes it difficult for us to protect our families and the public.
All right, Dr. Maddie Thatcher-Davis, thank you so much for your insight and time this morning. We appreciate it.
Let's get a check on your morning news now. Weather.
Vanessa Webb, good morning.
Hi, good morning, guys. I hope you've been enjoying all the sunshine we've been seeing across the East Coast. That completely starts to fade away this afternoon. If you're in the Ohio Valley, we do have a large storm system. We're going to go from fall to winter very quickly. We already have blizzard warnings that are put in place for South Dakota, extending all the way into Minneapolis. We're also watching a little bit of severe weather making its way through Louisiana right now, but it will quickly move out early afternoon. And you can see this line of storms. It will make its way into the East Coast, mid-Atlantic, and it's really across Northeast Ohio I'm focused on, where we could see our first official snowfall of the season. So it's really going to be delaying travel this afternoon. Now, if you're in the Northeast, I'll give you one more day of temperatures really on the mild side in the lower 70s. But tomorrow morning, early morning commute, if you're from DC, Philadelphia, New York City, even the Boston area, you're going to be dealing with some rainfall rates up to 2 inches per hour. So we're watching for flash flood watches about to go into place probably early this afternoon. And these are some heavy storms that will continue to make its way through even for your Friday evening. So this is going to kind of spoil some plans as we start the weekend off. Look at some of these snowfall totals. We're talking about 6 to 8 inches for northern Minneapolis into Minnesota area, but the wind gusts, we're going to see some widespread power outages in this area, and the blowing snow going to be an issue. So the National Weather Service has issued winter weather advisories, winter storm watches, and warnings. They'll be put in place throughout your afternoon into your evening. So as I said, we'll have another about 24 hours of this warmer air. You can see Pittsburgh, 66 degrees. That's about 13 to 15 degrees above average. Even Philadelphia in the upper 60s. Richmond today, 73 degrees. And then that warmer air kind of shifts more to southern New England tomorrow afternoon. But the big story with this storm system behind it is a ton of cool air. So if you put up the winter coat thinking, you know, we're going to get spoiled by these mild conditions, that really starts to fade away as we go into tomorrow. So this is not the greatest looking forecast as we start off the weekend, but definitely want to be preparing people.
So you are saying that the box of winter clothes I took out of storage but have not touched, it is time to finally make the switch this weekend. Thank you so much, Janessa.
It's definitely time.
All right, coming up, new information this morning in the Astroworld Music Festival tragedy.
Yeah, an attorney for rapper Travis Scott is speaking out how he is defending his client, plus the latest on the problems facing first responders, or that they say they faced prior to the event with event organizers.
Plus, calls for justice outside a Georgia courthouse where 3 men are being tried for the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. The critical piece of evidence presented in the courtroom that caused a scene outside. Next. We're back with the latest on that deadly crowd surge at the Astroworld Festival.
As authorities try to determine what caused the chaos, Houston's chief of police says the timeline of events will be key to the investigation. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky joins us now from the memorial in Houston. Good morning, Morgan.
Joe Ellison, good morning. And the chief providing some much needed clarity here, calling this a complex investigation that will likely take months, but stressing his responsibility here lies with the families of those 8 concert victims. And meanwhile, we're also hearing from some concert goers trapped inside that chaotic crowd.
There's nothing more important than the families.
With 8 deaths and 2 concert goers still in critical condition, Houston Police Chief Troy Finner placed some responsibility for the Astroworld concert disaster on Travis Scott and organizers.
The ultimate authority to end a show is with production and the entertainer.
Overnight, Scott's attorney speaking out, saying there has been multiple finger pointing, much of which has been by city officials who have sent inconsistent messages. Chief Finner is also focusing on who knew what, when.
Timelines are a major focus of the investigation right now.
The first call for mass casualties went out at 9:37 p.m., but concert organizers did not stop the show until nearly 40 minutes later. And because the Astroworld Festival was sanctioned by Harris County, NRG, and Live Nation, not the city of Houston, authorities say there was no direct communication between organizers and the Houston Fire Department.
It absolutely creates a delay.
The president of Houston's Firefighter Association saying the district fire chief closest to the venue was denied a walkthrough the morning of the event. Authorities say Live Nation was responsible for security inside the mosh pits. The promoter allegedly had more than 700 personnel on hand. Records confirming that are unclear. This is not the first time a Live Nation event has turned deadly. Since 2006, the event promotion company has been connected to multiple deaths and hundreds of lawsuits worldwide. NBC's calls to Live Nation and the security companies involved in Astroworld have not been returned.
I accepted the fact that I might have died.
For Gabby Simeone, flashbacks to Friday night are haunting. The 17-year-old, unaware she was recording moments she thought would be her last. Her screams caught on camera.
I started screaming, "I can't feel my legs," and my foot was faced a 90-degree angle on the other side.
Gabby's friend Mauricio pulling her to safety just seconds later, both realizing as they escaped just how close they came.
Now, meanwhile, Travis Scott has maintained throughout all of this he was unaware of any deaths or the severity of those injuries until after his performance had concluded. We're also hearing from police that clarified a story that came out over the weekend involving a security guard at the concert pricked in the neck with a needle that could have been tainted with drugs. That guard's story inconsistent. The chief saying that it appears he was struck in the head and never injected. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Morgan Chesky, thanks so much.
The trial over the death of Ahmaud Arbery continued with another day of high-stakes testimony. Supporters for the Arbery family rallied outside the courthouse yesterday, while the scene inside the courtroom grew contentious after 911 calls from the defendants were played. NBC News correspondent Ron Allen has the latest.
Good morning, Ellison and Joe. Court ended in dramatic fashion with a jury hearing emergency calls to police by 2 of the defendants in the weeks and months before the fatal encounter. We expect to hear more about that this morning.
When I turned around, he took off running into the house.
Okay. Travis McMichael calling police days before the fatal encounter with Ahmaud Arbery, reporting that he sees a man in a house under construction in his neighborhood.
What did he look like? It's a black male, red shirt, white shorts.
Are you okay?
Yeah. It just startled me. When I turned around, When I turned around and saw him and backed up, he reached into his pocket and ran into the house. So I don't know if he's armed or not.
Earlier, jurors heard an emergency call by defendant Gregory McMichael, reporting a suspicious person months before his son's call.
We just went up there and made contact with a real shady-looking fella. And he was, possibility he may be the one that's been breaking into all these automobiles out there at night. Just wanted to make somebody aware there was somebody living under there.
The drama playing out as the defense portrays the defendants as responsible citizens in a community facing a spike in crime.
People had shared their own personal experience with property crimes in Satilla Shores.
Right.
And it seemed to be an ongoing problem in 2019, now 2020.
It was, yeah.
Prosecutors trying to convince the jury Arbery was an innocent man.
Did Mr. Bryan ever say that Ahmaud had a weapon on him that day?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did Mr. Bryan ever say Ahmaud made any verbal threats towards him or any other person that day?
No.
Despite the tension in the courtroom, Arbery's parents say they remain hopeful.
This day, as we stand before this courthouse, I thought this day would never come.
We know our boy was lynched, and we kept searching for answers. But guess what? It's a God. We didn't give up. Arbery's parents still attending court every day, and like everyone here, anxious to see how the prosecution uses those emergency calls to police to help them make their case. Ellison, Joe.
All right. Thank you, Ron.
Now let's look at what is making news around the world this morning.
NBC's Raf Sanchez joins us from Tel Aviv. Raf, good morning.
Joe Ellison, good morning. F.W. de Klerk, the South African president who dismantled apartheid, has died at 85. De Klerk was a longtime defender of racial segregation, but in office, he negotiated with Nelson Mandela to bring the system to an end. He and Mandela were jointly awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993 for their efforts. The U.S. and China have issued a joint statement vowing to do more to take on climate change. The two countries are the world's biggest emitters of carbon, and the statement was cautiously welcomed at the COP summit, but it didn't say much in terms of firm commitments or deadlines. And finally, Ghana's parliament is considering a law that would make it illegal to be gay or to advocate for gay rights. The so-called Family Values Bill would be one of the most extreme anti-gay laws in Africa. And guys, the bill has been criticized by the UN, but it's actually being supported by some right-wing American groups. Guys?
A bill that would make it illegal to be gay. All right, Raf, thank you so much.
Coming up on Morning News Now, as we observe Veterans Day on this Thursday morning, a solemn commemoration at the Arlington's Tomb of the Unknown Soldier.
Plus, being Latino in the military, why one veteran says his race is being ignored among the ranks. We got those stories next. After several delays due to weather, SpaceX's latest rocket blasted off last night. The rocket carried with it the 600th person to reach space in the last 60 years. Actually, the official total is now 602, but it's a German astronaut who's part of the four-person crew gets to claim the title of being number 600 because of his mission assignment. SpaceX has now launched 18 people into space over the last 18 months. The four astronauts on this rocket will arrive at the International Space Station in less than 24 hours, where they'll stay for the next 6 months. And at the rate we're going right now, we'll probably hit another 600 in weeks, months.
I mean, it is happening really fast. Could you stay up there for 6 months?
Oh, yeah, it'd be fun.
Yeah.
It'd be something to write about. I don't know.
It would depend on who I was with.
That's very important. You're right. Very important.
Thank you, Joe. This week, members of the public have been allowed to visit the tomb of the unknown soldier at Arlington National Cemetery in honor of its 100-year anniversary. This morning, a full honors procession and joint service flyover are happening to mark the occasion and to remember those unknown soldiers who lost their lives during the First World War. This is the first time in decades the public has been granted access to the memorial. Usually, it is only visited by high-profile dignitaries during special events. As we continue to honor veterans this week, we also want to take a closer look at Latinos serving in the military and the struggles many face to rise through the ranks. NBC News Now anchor Tom Llamas has the story for our NBC News series, Those Who Serve.
Ellison and Joe, great to be with you guys. For years, tens of thousands of Latinos have enlisted across all branches of the military, but very few have risen through the ranks. In our series, Those Who Serve, we ask a top Pentagon official what's preventing so many Latinos from being promoted. Ricardo Aponte remembers the highs of being an airman, but can't forget the lows, setbacks that grounded his career.
It's a dream of a lifetime. I fell in love with flying back when I was 7 years old.
But after serving the country for 15 years, that dream came to a screeching halt.
I saw no more future in the active duty for me.
He was no longer rising in the ranks. He says he wasn't sure why until he looked in the mirror.
Do you think the opportunities to hit the right stepping stones in the military didn't come to you because you were Hispanic?
Yes. The short answer is yes.
Why did you think it had to do with your ethnicity?
I have no other reason to think it had to do with anything else.
Aponte went on to serve in the Air Force Reserve, where he says he received the right training and mentoring to move up, becoming a brigadier general before retiring in 2007. Latinos make up just over 17% of active duty members, but only 8% of the officer corps and 1% of general and flag officers. Right now, there's only one 3-star general, no 4-star general, and there's never been a Hispanic Secretary of Defense.
We're being ignored. Latinos in the military are not being mentored by senior leadership, and the reason is senior leadership that looks and is Hispanic does not exist.
One of the newest undersecretaries at the DOD is Gilbert Cisneros. He revealed to us he experienced firsthand the dead end many Hispanics face in the military during his time in the Navy.
I can even look at my own self, right? I was passed up at the 03 level for promotion.
So you experienced this?
I have. And so, but, you know, here, and this was one of the reasons that I wanted
What did you
job.
blame it on?
You know, You know, going back and reflecting on why I was passed over, you can kind of think like, okay, well, was there bias or was there racism towards that? I can kind of assume that might have been part of it.
Now he's in a position to change that. So how do you do that? What is the Biden administration doing to fix this problem?
There's a lot of things that we're going to do. Mentorship is one of the things, but it's a number of things coming down from recruiting talent to retaining talent in order to grow those individuals so that we can have Latinos become, you know, flag and general officers.
Nonprofit organizations like Esposas Militares, Military Family Advisory Network, ANSO, or the Association of Naval Services Officers, and others are tackling challenges when it comes to Latinos in the military.
ANSO has a lot of retired flag officers who offer their time up freely to mentor young junior officers. We need allies. We need people that can look down and say, we need to help these young men and women.
These groups serving a new type of mission, long overdue. As the undersecretary told me, you don't make general overnight. It will take decades. We reached out to every branch of the military. All of them mentioned targeted recruitment efforts and mentorship, including the U.S. Army, who launched a new initiative this year to best recruit diverse talent and broaden the access to senior reserve officer training. Guys?
Tom Yamas, thank you so much for that. Coming up with the holidays approaching, more of us are starting to travel.
And looking to get a hotel room, but the new warning that may give you sticker shock when you book that next stay. Next. As the holiday season rapidly approaches, many of us will be traveling and staying in hotels. But just how closely are you looking at that bill? A recent lawsuit is claiming Marriott and its hotels deceptively raked in hundreds of millions of dollars in fees that were not included in the advertised price of the hotel room.
Yeah, but as we found out, they are not the only one with those fees. NBC News investigative and consumer correspondent Vicki Nguyen explains.
A beach paradise, a ski trip in the mountains, or a weekend in Vegas. Wherever your next trip takes you, know this: the price you see for your hotel may not be the price you pay. According to a lawsuit filed by the District of Columbia Attorney General, Marriott Hotels deceptively took in $220 million in fees that are only revealed later in the booking process.
To find out how it works, I'm here in a tourist hotspot, Times Square, New York City, and I'm going to check into some of those hotels that charge the additional fees.
First stop, the Westin, a Marriott property. I found a room for $280 $84. Not bad for Times Square. But when I go to book, look at the final price, $363, which includes tax and this $30 destination amenity fee.
I'm here to check in.
At check-in, I'm told that $30 fee is non-refundable, but comes with various perks.
Always ask what that fee includes. Many places offer freebies like food and drinks.
At the Westin, the fee includes $30 in food and drink credits and a ticket to a selection of local tourist attractions. At the Hilton, the advertised rate, $358. But when I select my room, look at the fine print, an additional $30 mandatory charge per night. At check-in, I'm told that fee includes Wi-Fi, $30 in food and drink credits, and local and long-distance calls.
What if I don't use any of this? Do I get that money back? No, I lose it.
People deserve to see a price and to actually pay the price that they see. This is a bait and switch.
Christopher Elliott is a travel consumer advocate.
How many consumers do you think take advantage of the services covered by these amenity fees?
Very few. Let me give you an example. Some of these amenity fees or resort fees cover phone calls. So first of all, it's not really free because you're paying for it, but they call it free because it just sounds better. But who uses the phone in your hotel room anyway? You're using your cell phone.
While the Marriott and Hilton refused to give me a fee refund, I had better luck at the boutique hotel 48 Lex. They have a house privileges charge of $40. They said the fee could be used for a breakfast credit and wine. They couldn't refund me at check-in, but suggested I call after my stay to speak with a manager.
I was wondering if I could get that $40 house privilege fee refunded.
They quickly refunded my $40 after I said I didn't use any of the amenities. In a statement, Marriott International said in part, while they cannot discuss pending litigation, their policy is to disclose resort destination fees during the booking process, adding hotels that want to charge a fee must adhere to strict criteria, which includes a requirement to provide amenities that have a value exceeding the amount of the fee. Hilton said these fees are charged at just 1.5% of our properties globally, enable additional value for our guests, and are clearly disclosed many times when booking on the website. Hotel 48 Lex did not reply to 2 requests for comment. Elliott says the government should crack down on these fees because they can be confusing and costly for consumers. So if you spot these fees when you're booking a hotel, he recommends leave your cart without paying and try to book somewhere else.
They track that. And so if they see too many people booking away, they're going to lower the fees or remove them. We need to send a message to the hotel industry that we're not going to tolerate these fees.
That was Vicki Nguyen reporting. And a quick tip, always look before you check out. If you see a resort fee, destination fee, amenity fee, those are the types of additional charges consumers often miss.
Very helpful tips. And it is time now for possibly more tips. Our CNBC Money Minute, the biggest financial headlines of the day and why they matter to you.
Savannah Hanau joins us now. Savannah, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, so Disney returns to profit in the most recent quarter as it got a bump from reopened theme parks. But the stock is falling as subscriber growth for Disney Plus is slowing. Disney has about 118 million Disney Plus customers, up 60% from a year ago, but only 2 million higher than the previous quarter. That's the lowest quarter-over-quarter gains since the service launched 2 years ago. Disney says streaming is still a top priority. Affirm is expanding its Buy Now, Pay Later partnership with Amazon. The deal will allow all eligible purchases of $50 or more on Amazon to be split into simple monthly payments. It was previously only available to select customers. Affirm will also be embedded as a payment method in Amazon Pay's digital wallet. The Buy Now, Pay Later industry has taken off in the past year as consumers opted for online shopping and used pay later options to make purchases easier on their wallets. And it may be even harder to get your hands on a PlayStation 5 this holiday season. Bloomberg reports Sony has cut production of the game console even further because of issues with getting parts and shipping. Sources say Sony now expects to make about 15 million PS5s, down from previous targets of 16 million. This latest development comes as the global semiconductor chip shortage is impacting a wide range of companies, from electronics makers like Sony to automakers. Guys, back to you.
Silvana, thank you so much for that.
You got it.
Right, you've heard these terms by now. Bitcoin mining, the blockchain, Dogecoin. Cryptocurrency is having a notable impact on the world's financial markets, but it's also affecting the environment. NBC News Now's Joshua Johnson takes a closer look.
Cryptocurrency is a new kind of payment network. It's largely free of regulation, and transactions can be harder to trace. But this anonymity has a price, and the planet is paying it. The issue is how crypto is made in cyberspace. It's called mining, but instead of digging for diamonds or gold, computers are digging for answers. Miners use programs to solve incredibly complicated problems. The solutions validate the cryptocurrency transaction, and that validation goes into a decentralized record-keeping system called blockchain. If you wanted to be a crypto miner in the 2010s, your home computer might be enough to get you started. Today, you need a bunch of specialized, very powerful computers. They're known as mining rigs, and they use a stunning amount of electricity. Take Bitcoin, for example. Researchers at the University of Cambridge say that Bitcoin uses more electricity annually than all of Argentina. According to the website Digiconomist, the carbon footprint of one Bitcoin transaction is comparable to more than 2 million Visa transactions. And that one transaction uses as much power as the average American household uses in about 2 months. Now, there are more environmentally friendly methods of doing this, but there's only so much renewable energy to go around. By one estimate, Bitcoin uses between 40 and 75% of the world's renewables. That leaves less clean energy for factories, businesses, and homes. So digital currencies like Bitcoin factor into the climate crisis in a very real way. No wonder it was among the topics discussed at the UN Climate Conference in Glasgow. But now that world leaders have talked about it, what will they do about it?
Our thanks to our NBC News Now colleague Joshua Johnson for that report.
Coming up on this Veterans Day, we at Morning News Now are honoring some of the veterans that we get to work with every day here at 30 Rock.
The impact their service has had on their careers outside of the military. Next. Veterans Day gives all of us a chance to reflect on the sacrifices our fellow Americans have made to defend our country and to thank them for their service.
This year for Veterans Day, Savannah was able to sit down with 4 of our truly amazing colleagues who are veterans to talk about what their service means to them and how civilians like us can support those who have served.
I'm Tanya Arias. I serve in the Army as a supply specialist, and I am currently a senior talent systems analyst at NBC Universal.
My first name's Siraj, last name's Singh. I joined in 2012, right when I was in my senior year of high school. I served as a civil affairs specialist.
In which branch?
In the U.S. Army Reserve.
Okay.
I'm still currently in the National Guard, New York. I'm a captain, and here at the company, I'm a manager of honor engineering support for NBC News.
I'm John L. Sullivan. I was in the military for 2 years. I started as a private, and I rose to the rank as Specialist 4th Class. That's my rank. Now I work at NBC, and I'm a technical director at Plaza Productions.
These 4 are veterans from my workplace who say their service taught them values they have kept with them through their careers.
I would say the Army instills teamwork, leadership, how to give an order, and it works in your everyday working life here of how to lead a team, crew.
I think about it from a leadership perspective, so the way that I kind of navigate like the team environment or see the corporate ladder work, it's very much it's very similar to the way the military works.
They serve their country in different eras, doing different jobs and answering the call to duty in different ways.
I was drafted out of college. I graduated in June. I was in the Army by August. So it wasn't a volunteer thing. I was drafted during the Vietnam War, a very unpopular war. So people of my generation had to make decisions, are you going to go in or are you going to go to Canada or something like that, I decided to do my service.
At the time of being drafted, did you feel nervous or scared or anything like that?
I wasn't exactly looking forward to it, but I wasn't nervous. I was just let it happen,
That That's your attitude about a lot I've learned from you, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Essentially went from covering the Olympics at NBC. I mean, one of the biggest things that we do here at NBC News, and probably huge for you professionally, to being deployed to Iraq.
I didn't have much time to think about it. We were preparing a year prior, so I had a lot of time with the soldiers getting ready for that, and then I had to go to the Olympics. So I'm there, I'm just enjoying my time, having a great time with everybody, and then coming back and a week and a half, 2 weeks later, leaving on St. Patrick's Day, and heading out the door to go.
And tell me about those expert badges. So you have an expert badge, it's this pin right here.
These are my expert badges in rifle and grenade.
What was your experience like as a woman?
As a woman, thankfully, I think I was very fortunate because I felt like my leaders really supported us, and I was able to get my education as well. The experience that I was able to acquire through the military, it has helped me tremendously in the civilian side.
You've done like everything in this building that is 30 Rock.
Well, I've been here 55 years, so I mean, I've done everything from Howdy Doody, Huntley Brinkley, the Today Show with Barbara Walters, Saturday Night Live, the Tomorrow Show with Tom Snyder, Phil Donahue, all of them, basically.
And now you do Morning News Now.
It's one of the best crews I've ever worked with. They really are. They're a terrific family.
We do feel like a family, don't we?
We do.
Yeah,
I think we do.
I know. It's so special.
Yeah.
And when it comes to a simple way we can help support our heroes, well, they've all told me the same thing.
I feel like even just a thank you goes a long way.
Just going up and saying like, hey, thank you for your service, really appreciate you, and introducing yourself. And I personally think just by being a person to a veteran, that goes a long way.
It doesn't have to be on Veterans Day. It can be any day of the year. Say, hey, thank you for your service. And that's a big step right there.
So from all of us at Morning News Now to veterans everywhere, thank you for your service. We are so grateful.
Of course, we'd like to echo that as well to our colleagues and to everyone out there who has served this country.
Thank you. Big thank you. How lucky are we to call those
Exactly.
people our colleagues?
Exactly. We are grateful for them. That does it for this hour of Morning News Now.
News continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.